Good evening, this is Mike. That didn't work.
Good evening. I would like to call to order the Monday, April 17th, 2023 meeting of the school board, Wilson School Board to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case? Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Dr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Negrini?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mrs. Cocker?
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Please stand for the posting of the colors.
Colors. Oh, left face. Ma'am, permission to post colors. Post colors. Post colors. Present arms. Order arms. Colors reverse march. Right face. Calm left march.
This evening, we have communications from the Mini-thon, Wilson High School Mini-thon presentation.
It does. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Melandra, and I was the Mini-thon overall this year for the class of 2023. And with me are Natalie Bertatelli and Kira Hoffman, the co-overalls. We just wanted to talk a little bit about our Mini-thon, which happened on March 3rd to 4th, and exactly what it was and what we all do.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what Minithon is, and it's a smaller version of Penn State's Thon. Penn State's Thon is a 46 like marathon almost, short for long for Thon, and it used to be 48 hours, but now it's 46. And ours is a 12-hour event where the students stay overnight at the school, and we do a bunch of events. And throughout the year, that's when we're raising the majority of our money for the grand reveal at the end of the night, and it's all to go towards awareness and raising funds for the fight against pediatric cancer.
Okay, so the main organization that this goes towards is the Four Diamonds Organization, which was founded in 1972 by Charles and Irma Millard to support their son, Chris, who is fighting cancer. When Chris was fighting cancer, he was around the age of 11 when he was diagnosed, and this fund has then since grown from 1972 to where we are today, and it has been able to help the lives of so many children by providing therapies, treatments, all to no cost of the families or the child that is fighting cancer, all because of this family.
So here are some pictures from this year's Minithon, and then in the right corner is from Thon. And then in order to make all of this possible, there are so many different factors that go into it, and specifically we wanted to give recognitions to our overalls and captains. So again, the overalls are standing up here in front of you today, and then our advisors were Miss Marconi and Mr. Rutt, who are in the back there. And then we had about 28 captains, I think, who would meet with us weekly and help really plan the event. And those are all the names up there. I'm not going to go through every single one, but we have entertainment, school relations, family relations, recruitment, merchandise, finance, hospitality, special events, elementary, middle school relations, morale, operations, and communications. And all of these are so important to help us plan and create our night of events. So yeah. And then something that we thought was really important this year was captain bonding between those people that I just listed. We wanted a really strong community within the Minithon, and here are some captain bonding events. We had Zumba, we had a team dinner, we had a white elephant, we even had on the night of painting posters, which created a lot more bonding than we thought, and yeah.
So I'm going to talk about our Gold Out events this year. So normally, if you know, we have the huge Gold Out football game at the beginning of the year. But this year we really wanted to spread it out to other sports, not only just football. So we did girls soccer, almost all the fall sports, and in addition, the winter sports as well. We did basketball, we did girls soccer, boys soccer, field hockey. And we just really wanted to branch out and include everyone in spreading the awareness. And Gold Out is September. In September, it is Gold Out because it's Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month. So we just wanted to inform everyone of the cause and get as many people involved as possible.
Another one of our big fundraisers was, of course, our food fundraisers. And we had many throughout the entire school year, which all went to the grand total. But it was amazing to see all of the involvement within the school, not just the captains and the people involved with Minithon specifically, but everyone would come out to these events just to get some food and to support Minithon, which was amazing.
Duncan's Corn Maze was something new that we did this year. This was at Duncan's Corn Maze, which is about, I think, 15 minutes-ish from the school. We had cow petting, we had a tractor ride, we had a huge bonfire, and just a bunch of the events there, and we worked with the people who are in charge of Duncan's, and this was, again, just a new event that we thought was really fun, and we hope it continues in the future.
Our car washes are a huge form of gaining funds for Minithon, and this year we held it at the Berkshire, and this is just a way for people to come and support Minithon through like getting their car washed, and really the captains truly bond over this because sometimes we get really busy and there's a lot of cars coming in and we almost feel like we're working at an auto spa, and we're trying to wash the cars and get everyone through and do the best job possible, so it's really fun and just a really great way to spread awareness and, in addition, funds for the cause.
Another one of our big traditions here at Wilson is our Powder Puff game, which is basically a girls' football game. And not many people know this, but it's held by Minithon. And a lot of girls come out to play this game. It's definitely very competitive. Everyone gets really, really into it, which is so amazing to see. And it's really about playing football for a cause.
Kids Night Out is another very, very fun event that we do. We did 2 this year, one around the holiday season and then one around Valentine's Day. And this is where parents can come to the school, drop off their kids for, I think it's 4 hours, and then basically all of the captains that I listed earlier will all hold a room with 1 or 2 other captains, and then they'll have an activity. And then the kids will bounce around between room and different activities throughout the night, and basically, in the long run, the captains just end up babysitting the kids for a few hours, but it's always a very fun event, and we always love seeing the kids.
Diving for Diamonds was one of our new events this year that we haven't done before, and it's held at the natatorium at the high school, and it's where kids and their families are able to come and have a free swim almost. Well, the charge is not free, but it's free open. The pool's open for everyone to come and swim. And the kids, I went around and took pictures of them holding up their diamonds. I had some kids jumping off the diving boards. We had some competitions. It was just a great way to involve everyone and get these kids in the pool and for a great cause.
The final thing was the Night Of, which is the big event that everyone looks forward to. Our Night Of is definitely one of the biggest events here because we have so many things to do, so many activities, lots of people come. It's great to see the entire school come out in support of one big thing. And over the entire night, we do plenty of things. We do raves, we do I can't even remember, there was so much. We feed them, of course, it's a long night. We do line dances, which is a big one. Our morale captains did a very good job this year. And it's really just so amazing to see our entire, not only this school, high school, but the entire district come out to support pediatric cancer.
So as Kira said, with our Night Of event, all of the things that we just listed, plus so many more, all of those fundraisers, all go towards this final total that we reveal at the end of the 12-hour Minithon Night Of. And this year we were able to raise $82,000.23, which was absolutely amazing. It's just always, it's so rewarding being able to see all of the hard work that we put into the year going to such a great cause, and to know that $82,000 is going to be donated directly towards the kids and research. And yeah. And then, of course, we also wanted to thank all of our sponsors. So these are the sponsors that helped support our food causes and helped donate just their money and even their time. Yeah. And then we also wanted to give a special thanks to Mr. Centrone, his tech crew, and all of our teacher volunteers. Again, a lot of work goes into our Night of Minithon, and it would not be possible without any of these people. And then finally, we wanted to thank again our sponsors and our school district for being able to make this help happen. And finally, to wrap up this little presentation, we wanted to introduce our new overalls for the 2023 to 2024 year, and that is going to be Gia Jacobs, Avonlea Leitner, and Caitlin Trickett, who are standing right behind me. We're very honored to be able to pass on this cause to these 3 wonderful ladies, and we just wanted to shout them out. So yeah, thank you for listening, and thank you for everything that you help us with. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Well, that is just amazing. $82,000 is an incredible accomplishment, and you had fun doing it. So thank you for all of your hard work, and welcome to the ladies for next year. Good luck. I don't know, is there like a competition between like one group to the next year, like to try and outdo, like that 23 cents was just 23 cents more than last year? Or No, yeah. Right. Very, very amazing job. Mr. Moravich, we don't have any topics on non-agenda on agenda items, so do you have any update yourself? Okay. Oh, yes, and it's up to the Minithon group. If you don't have to stay, but you can if you want to see Democracy in Action. I don't- Or you can just go home and do homework. It's up to you. The board did have executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel matters. Looking for 2.1, request to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on April 3rd, 2023. Looking for a motion for 2.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Treasurer's report. Mr. McCray?
Yeah, motion to approve the treasurer's report, the investment report, and the journal and capital funds financial reports as presented in the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. So we have a motion for 3.1. Do we have a second?
Negrini, second.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Payment of bills, 4.1. Requests to approve the payment of bills as presented. Looking for a motion for 4.1. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Negrini. I just read right through that.
That's okay, feel free. Motion to approve the payment of bills from the general fund in the amount of $8,645,072.18 as attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion. Do we have a second for 4.1?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Financial reports, Mr. Negrini.
Motion to approve the financial reports from the month of March 2023, cafeteria, childcare, and the activity accounts also for March of 2023, Southern and West Middle School and the senior high school as attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 5.1. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report. Dr. Trickett.
Thank you. I present the superintendent's report, inclusive of all items within. Just want to take a minute to welcome Rochelle Haymaker. She'll be joining our team on May 1st, replacing a longtime staff member, Mr. Summons, who will be moving on to a new opportunity. Just want to thank him again for his years of service and commitment to the Wilson School District, and welcome Rochelle.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve Superintendent's Report 6.1 through 6.9 as presented.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Hart, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
7, request permission to approve a rescheduled field trip to New York City for 88 West Middle School chorus and musical theater students in grades 6, 7, and 8 on April 19th, 2023. Cost of the district is 1 substitute teacher for 1 day. The trip will be chaperoned by Andrew Rhodes and either Chris Rada or Steve Rhodes. Looking for motion for 7.1.
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Do we have a second?
Negrini, second.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Mr.
Just
Negrini?
just briefly, I appreciate the booking company fixing this issue. You had a group of middle school students, obviously our chaperones, I think even some parents were there, and instead of booking the matinee show, they booked the evening show, so we had students essentially going a long way to New York for pizza essentially. And that certainly could have been a situation where, the booking company could have said, sorry, you can attend the evening show, and it certainly didn't work out that way. So I appreciate the willingness to work with the district, that there's really no cost to us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other discussion from the board? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please. Oh, it's voice vote, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, 8.1, request approval of substitute food service manager rate. 8.2, request approval of substitute support staff rates. 8.3, request approval of the updated job descriptions for district building and teaching and learning. Looking for a motion to approve Human Resources items 8.1 through 8.3 as presented. Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second? Casper. Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, looking for a motion to grant permission to approve the adoption of a settlement agreement and release to establish an education fund to be held and managed by the district in the amount of $30,000 for legitimate educational expenses to settle and comprise all claims raised by the parents of a high school student, and to authorize the board president and secretary to execute the agreement on behalf of the district. 9.2, motion to approve a student discipline agreement to interim placement dated February 6, 2023, as presented. And 9.3, request approval of the district special education plan for 2023 through 2026 as presented. Looking for a motion to approve student services items 9.1 through 9.3 as presented.
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
On 9.3, there was a lot of information, obviously, in that rather long document, but there was a few of the buildings that the categories that were checked no on, I guess, 4 of the areas within those buildings. And I'd just like to get a little update in the near future as to the impact checking those no has.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. Dr. Trickett, that can be arranged. Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Okay. Having a motion and a second, roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, 10.1, request approval of the 2023-24 capital projects plan funded with capital reserve funds. 10.2, request approval to authorize the chief financial officer to sign a natural gas supplier contract for the district for fiscal years beyond 2023-24. 10.3, request approval of the budget transfers dated March 16th, 2023 through April 12th, 2023 as attached. Looking for motion to approve finance items 10.1 through 10.3 as presented.
So move, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Curriculum and Staff Development, 11.1, request approval of an agreement with Iron Spire Complex in Reinhold, PA, for the JROTC Ball to be held on April 29th, 2023. Looking for a motion for 11.1.
Schneider. So moved.
Mr. Schneider first, Mr. Martin second?
Either way.
Either way, okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
12.1, Transportation, motion to award contracts for the purchase of fuel for the 2022-23 school year through the Berks County Joint Purchasing Board to Petroleum Traders Corporation for diesel at a price of $2.7279 per gallon, and to PAPCO Inc. for unleaded gasoline at a price of $2.3902 per gallon as presented. Looking for a motion for 12.1.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Dr. Kennedy, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
And under policies, we have 13.1, final reading and adoption of the following policy, 617, petty cash, as well as second readings of policies, which will be approved next meeting. Looking for a motion for 13.1.
So moved,
Mr.
Negrini.
Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Enrollment report, as of April 13th, 2023, there are 6,429 students, which is a decrease of 9 from the previous report on March 16th, 2023. Which brings us to our committee reports. BCTC and Student Services, Mrs. Casper.
Thank you, President Cocker. I have no report for either one of those today.
Well, that makes our job a little easier, thank you. BCIU and Curriculum, Dr. Kennedy.
I too have no report for either of those today.
All right, we will take it. Berks EIT, Mr. Schlasman. Oh, my gosh. I ruined the streak. So extracurricular does have a report. We had, the extracurricular committee met last Tuesday. I think previously I had said Monday, and then I forgot that we were off Monday. So we met last Tuesday at noon. And the main topic of discussion was kind of taking a look at our offerings of physicals that we kind of have advertised each season in the past, where before each sports season, we offer at the nurse's office for students to come in and have their physicals done before their sports and extracurriculars start that season. And we're looking at possibly whittling that down to one session just in the beginning of the year for cost purposes. Also, the number of participants have drastically decreased throughout the last 3 years. So we're going to look at shortening that to just one offering, still having it available for students, but saying if you plan on participating in an extracurricular or a sport this year, make sure you get in the beginning of the year. Otherwise, you just go to your own medical doctor and have the forms filled out. I don't know if this is crossing over into facilities, but because it's on an athletic court, the tennis courts down by the high school have had an algae buildup. And so I think when it's dry, it's not a big deal, but as soon as it is rain or even just a sprinkle, it gets very slippery. So for safety purposes, we are having that power washed, delicately power washed, to make sure that the surface of the court is kept intact, but the algae's gone. So didn't even think about that. I think there's a lot of tree coverage in that area too, so that probably doesn't help. And we are going to be hosting, on the non-athletic side, we're going to be hosting the cadets, which is part of the Drum Corps International. I think we had done that previously, and before that, it was another group, which is, it's great that we're having these relationships and our students that are in band and in the area have a chance to come and watch them. They're very professional level, very impressive. And we'll be hosting them August 3rd through August 5th, 2023. So tickets will be available for our community as well to come and see them perform. So that is my report for extracurricular. Mr. Case is not here for facilities. Would, Mr. Negrini, would you have his report, or?
I do. So I got back-to-back duties, so I'll be speaking for quite a while, so.
Okay, so
you know,
facilities and finance.
Get
Mr.
comfortable,
Negrini.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So we had a facilities meeting on Tuesday, April 11th. We discussed a number of topics. First was the gym floors and bleachers. At this point, we are almost completed all of the gym floor refurbishing throughout the district. Spring Ridge still needs to be barrel sanded and re-logoed sometime this summer. All of the gym floors are being changed to oil-based products based upon discussions with the vendors. This should extend the life of our gym floors throughout the district, 60 to 70 years. We had some bleachers and backboard assessments done and have a maintenance plan put in place throughout the district for those particular items as well. Lighting. We discussed lighting at both the upper and lower house at the high school. We did some upgrades recently throughout the campus at the high school, moving towards LEDs, but there are still some spots throughout the high school campus with some of the older lighting bulbs that we're looking to receive some quotes to upgrade those so that ultimately we have the same lighting throughout the entirety of the campus for safety reasons and certainly ways to find overall savings of the life of those bulbs and lighting equipment. We discussed security and property throughout the district, doors and cameras. A quote was received from TWG for 2 different options: use what we currently have in place and find some upgrades or replace the entire system. And this could be done in stages to help offset the potential costs of this project. We're looking to move to a cloud-based system. We discussed how previously the Spring Township Police does have the ability to see into some of our feeds, but ultimately to move to a cloud-based system would increase the ability to have other agencies to help monitor and assist security throughout all of the district. So we realize that the overall comprehensive project far exceeds the money that we're receiving through some grant money. So we're going to look to, as I said, prioritize those safety needs that can be covered by the grant and certainly look to phase in as quickly as possible any other recommendations for these safety and security needs. We also talked about going back and reviewing what we have done as a district to upgrade our security throughout the last 5 to 10 years. During my time on the board, there's been numerous upgrades or changes to systems at individual buildings, individual doors, making sure that communication as quickly as possible is put out to law enforcement. So we're looking to hear back on what we've done over the last 5 to 10 years as we look to spend money on additional safety upgrades throughout the district. Trash receptacles, we're looking to establish continuity of the receptacles throughout the district so that when replacements need to be provided at different campuses, that we're very easy to do that as opposed to having different particular receptacles that may cause a challenge to our trash haulers. Dr. Trickett coordinated a campus-wide cleanup with our spring athletes on Monday, April 10th. That was well attended. And I believe, as Dr. Trickett indicated, donuts were provided to all, and only one was left over. So must have had quite the record turnout of students to help clean up our campus. Summer positions were discussed. High school graduates for grounds could be available on a part-time basis for summer work. We discussed the netting that was installed on Mack Field. The manufacturer did not provide the correct size, but to the benefit of the district, in fact, they had provided more material than was needed for replacement. So we're looking to find different areas where we can use the additional netting that was provided to provide additional safety features at that location. The trash hauler provided to the district was discussed, and our current trash hauler, Republic, offered a 7% discount for the district to stay with them as the hauler, and will remain with Republic and not participate in the BCIU bid, where those bids came in a little bit higher than that. Auditorium rental updates were discussed. We were approached by a church group to lease space for their Sunday services, and this was done pre-COVID. That same group has asked to return and asked if we would consider rental of West Middle School. They are looking for approximately an 18-month to 3-year commitment to use the space. They currently are charged by some other there are some local districts that currently charge anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000 a month to utilize the spaces. So we're going to continue the conversation about potentially allowing this group to utilize the West Auditorium and how that may impact our space over there, make sure it doesn't impact our classroom settings the following day. Nothing has been decided at this point, and we'll report back on that shortly. Discussion with the music team regarding the high school auditorium project, not only the music, but I believe theater as well, about whether or not the idea of doing the auditorium project, if this board does decide to move forward with the project, to be done in stages, or to simply move forward with the project that would leave this space certainly not available or accessible to our students and staff. The majority feels that the better option would be to move forward with the project without going forward in stages, that they would then be able to make accommodations during that period of time that the space was unavailable. The expected time frame that if the board does move forward with the auditorium project where that space would not be accessible would be the summer of 2024 through the fall of 2025. So we'll have to potentially look at where to move some of those high school, middle school, elementary school concerts. The big concern, needless to say, would be where the spring musical would be held. Certainly our middle school auditoriums are not large enough to accommodate that particular production. Discussions are in the works to look into potential alternate venues to hold that spring musical the spring of 2025. Some discussion on pro-quality cleaning starting this week. The lower house HVAC, some doors and painting taking place, in a recap of the swatting incident. And the next meeting is for facilities is scheduled for June 12th. So that is the report for facilities. Moving on to another long report regarding finance that we had earlier today at 4:30. We discussed year-to-date financial summaries and general fund budget preparation. Year-to-date, the local, state, and federal revenues realized is ahead of last year. Our expenditures used year-to-date is lower than last year. Part of that has to do with the timing of invoices that go off and go out to our vendors. And there is also less being spent in salaries and benefits due to an inability of the district to currently fill some open positions. We discussed how the charter school expenditure budget is projected to be lower than anticipated. We are projected at a $2.8 million surplus as of today's date. Food service is showing that the budget is strong. The number of months currently covered with food service is about 6.6 months. That has been helped by a fully funded breakfast through the state. That was something that was put in place by the governor. Participation data, lunch is down on average 338 meals a month compared to last year. That's about a 10% drop-off, which is not too bad considering that last year, obviously, all school lunches were free. Breakfast, obviously, the participation remains the same. Unfortunately, we are seeing the negative balances for accounts going up. We're currently at negative balances of about $25,000, of which $6,500 have been sent out to collections. So again, we're reminding families to reach out if they need assistance, to reach out in terms of applications for free and reduced lunches. We certainly don't like to see those balances increase, certainly towards the end of the year. We discussed the child care fund. That's also strong at this point. The number of months covered currently is 8.9. The tuition-based programs that we have in the district may require increases in the hourly rates that we pay to our employees in order to obtain and maintain quality staffing. As we noted, the before and after school child care, there are currently 43 open slots, which is unusual. However, it's not based upon a lack of demand. It is based upon the lack of ability to establish the appropriate federal and state mandated adult to child ratios for those programs. So we'll report back on that in the near future in terms of potential recommendations to modify the hourly rates for that program. We discussed behind the wheel rates. Currently this year, it's $380 for 6 hours of behind the wheel service. We compared that to some either local districts that do have a behind the wheel program or private vendors. So a proposal to increase by 5% that program to $400. That is still less than what some of those private vendors charge, and it would certainly allow for that particular program not to lose any money. Currently, this year, it's projected to have an excess of about $3,500. With the increase that's being proposed, in large part due to an increase in the hourly rate as part of our contract, we'll still see an excess, but certainly not to the extent that we see this year, but it will not lose any money. And then finally, the preparation for passing our final budget. Again, reminder, the proposed final budget will be voted upon May 13th. The board adopts a final budget on June 19th. Some factors that are being considered moving forward. Since 2018, we're seeing an average enrollment increase of about 76 students per year. We're seeing an increase in low-income student population, an increase in the English language learners, an increase in special education population. All of those things factor in to resources needed in those areas. And so those growth needs and changing demographics of the district has resulted in a recommendation from administration of additional positions that would require an additional $2.5 million in salaries and benefits. However, this is offset by the fact that restructuring or attrition of certain positions that are not being filled, a savings of $1.5 million. So really what we're talking about is the need of an additional $1 million in investment towards the budget to alleviate those recommendations for additional staffing. And what is being proposed is some of the money that we have been budgeting to set aside each year for enrollment expansion projects, is take that $1 million out of there for this year. So ultimately, we're not looking at any of the additional staffing needs to be impacted by tax increases. We're seeing a real estate assessment growth of 0.3. So based upon all of that, and I think we reported on this previously, that the governor's proposed budget would increase Wilson's funding by about $2.4 million. We're working off of the assumption that only 50% of the governor's proposed budget will actually be adopted by the legislature in Harrisburg, and we're using that as a kind of a moving target and being somewhat optimistic, but at the same time cautious. So based upon all of that, there are three scenarios that were recommended today to the Finance Committee. Scenario one would be a 1 mil increase, or 3.49%. The second scenario, a 0.93 or 3.24% increase. Scenario three, 0.84 mils or a 2.93% increase. All of those proposed scenarios would provide for a 5-year projection that would keep within our board policy of not falling below 3% of the general fund balance. However, we talked about our goal of a fund balance covering expenses of up to 5%. There's no decision made at this point coming out of committee as to which of those scenarios would be recommended towards the proposed final budget. But certainly, again, it's a work in progress in the hopes that, as we mentioned in our finance meeting, knowing that the courts have determined that Pennsylvania's funding formula has been deemed unconstitutional, that finding is not being appealed by the Republicans in the state legislature, that looking at it from an optimistic standpoint, that there may be an increase along the lines of the governor's proposal as the legislature works towards, drafting new funding formulas in future years, and that perhaps with something closer to 100% of the governor's proposed budget as opposed to 50%, those proposed millage increases would go down between May 13th and our final budget that would be adopted on June 19th. So more to come, a lot of hard work going into this process moving forward. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenie. Legislative, Mr. Schneider.
Yes, the COLA group met last week. Charter schools were, of course, part of the topic of discussion, as were budgetary matters. But as Mr. Negrini alluded to, while the governor has released his budget, the legislators are just getting started on their end of trying to put it together. So there's not really too much at this point to report on.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Human Resources, Mr. Hart.
I have no report.
Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
Good evening, everyone. First, we would like to congratulate Wilson School District social worker Allison Poplawski for being nominated for the Annie Sullivan Award. The Annie Sullivan Award program recognizes individuals in Berks County who encourage the understanding and promotion of students with disabilities in their school or community. Allison was honored at a reception at the Berks County Intermediate Unit, and we want to just commend Allison for her amazing efforts for our students. Also, Wilson High School student Jaslea Herring-Thomas recently participated in the PA Regional Cane Quest at Kutztown University, and she placed first in the Explorers Group. The purpose of the Cane Quest is to promote independence by challenging PA's blind and visually impaired students to utilize and showcase their orientation and mobility skills. So we are very proud of Jaslea and her ongoing achievements. This isn't her first time winning a great award like this, so we're super proud of her. We also want to congratulate Wilson High School student Sindora Sridhar on receiving first place in the Rotary Club's four-way regional speech contest. With this first place finish, she will now advance to the final competition to be held on May 6th at the Tropicana Resort in Atlantic City. So we wish her the best of luck. And
if you will, sorry, I should have said them together, the Education Foundation
Sure.
for Mr. Case, thank you.
yes, I will report on behalf of Mr. Case. The Wilson Education Foundation is currently accepting 2023 graduation sponsorships. Information has gone out to families and included in the Bulldog Blitz. Through these sponsorships, the Education Foundation will be able to support the senior class, including assistance with prom, cap and gown events, and the graduation ceremony itself. Information about being a sponsor is on the Wilson Education Foundation website. The next Wilson Education Foundation meeting is scheduled for Friday, May 19th at 7:30 a.m. right here in this room here in the admin building. And this is the last meeting for this school year. And then finally, mark your calendars for the 2023 Wilson Community Night at the Fight and Phils. The game will be on Thursday, May 25th at 6:45, and there will be fireworks, which is great. Students at each building will be recognized for their achievements for the school year, and those students will receive a free ticket. Additional tickets will be available for purchase at the beginning of May, and information will be sent out through all of our district communications channels as well as through the Education Foundation. Sponsorship opportunities are available, and you can contact Molly Mack if interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman.
And just to have that, Mrs. Troutman, I believe that night some of our Wilson students will actually be singing the national anthem as well.
Oh, good to know. That's awesome. Very cool. It is always a great night, so I do encourage everybody to come out. We try to utilize as many students as we can at that event, so thank you.
Yep.
And good segue into Mr. McCray, Technology Committee.
I'll actually defer to Mr. Schneider, as I was in attendance at the finance meeting that overlapped at the same time. So all yours, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you. We talked about the new line panels being brought in this summer to replace the Promethean boards as a technology upgrade. Sixth grade and ninth grade will get Chromebook replacement, as will elementary staff. We have new time clocks installed, and which covers about half of them. We're budgeting for the second half for next year. Wireless access points that were ordered last year have finally arrived. We're looking at pricing to upgrade the firewall as part of this, and as seen on part of the agenda tonight, 2 current interns and 2 past interns as part of the technology summer crew. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Student Outreach, Ms. Danny Radash.
Good evening, or bonjour, as our 4th and 5th year French students arrived back home from their trip in Paris, and they saw the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, d'Orsay, and much more. It seemed like such a neat experience to learn the language and the culture. And our STEM students arrived home from the Belize trip this week, and they snorkeled, ziplined, planted trees, and learned about the Mayan culture, so welcome back. And thank you to our spring athletes who are making an effort to keep our school campus clean. Last Monday, they came back to the school and picked up trash for over an hour, so thank you. And through her internship with Voice Up Berks, senior Jada Garber visited Southern Middle School and taught students how to use food waste to benefit the environment, and the students spent their lunchtime collecting food waste to be composted. So thank you, Jada. And Saturday was the Trot for Troops, a 4K hosted by JROTC to support local veterans, and this was held at Green Valley and West Fit Trail. And student government will be hosting a school board candidate forum on Wednesday, May 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Here in this room. So please join us if you want to hear more about our school board candidates and their platforms. And if you cannot attend, that's okay. We will be live streaming it, and it will be posted to the YouTube archive of the Wilson School District. So thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Mr. Maravich, we do have public participation on non-agenda items.
Okay, thank you. Rules of public participation for school board meetings. Individuals attending the meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead an opportunity to offer comments on matters that or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on, even if the employee, parent, or student is speaking because of confidentiality laws. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign the administrator or may directly speak to the speaker after the meeting to attempt to answer any of those questions. The board respectfully asks that you direct your comments to the board as a body, as it's the entire board that will need to vote on future matters. Clapping, calling out, or cheering is not permitted, nor are conversations in the audience. Individuals may not approach the board tables. Individuals shall make their comments from the speaker's lectern. It's 3 minutes, and I'll try to give a non-disruptive 1-minute warning. Any person making threats of violence may be removed from the meeting or may be cited by local police. The above expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is on board docs embedded within the website.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Tammy Keener, comments from last board meeting.
Hi, good evening. My throat's a little dry, I'm sorry. I'm not sick. You all get closing statements at the end of the board meeting, and I think you should give the public the same rebuttal. But that's a fight for later. We can fight that later. I'm here to give my rebuttals to several of your comments at the last board meeting. Really, Mr. Trickett, you want to wait to catch whomever is committing health issues, such as defecating and urinating in our high school bathrooms, for a tracking system? I gave you the most inexpensive solution to the problem until you can replace it with a well-thought-out system to better serve the school and save the taxpayers' money. Simply have Mr. Simcox install 2 cameras, which I'm sure he can do for a whole lot less than the board can find a quote. We already employ maintenance and security. They can monitor the bathrooms. This is a temporary remedy to catch whoever is doing it and also to instill the discipline that we need in the school. Ms. Casper, I find it interesting that you praised the book, 1619, that Mr. McCree spoke of at the last board meeting. You do realize that man called me a racist at the second board meeting he ever attended. 1619 is based on essays and opinions. Not one single historical fact can be proven about the book. Critics of the book, such as New York Times and CNN, New York Times said, producers said that, I believe strongly in the right to opinion to produce a piece of material. We do not agree with this book as a scholarly book. CNN's arguments over the importance, relevance, and accuracy of the book began for them immediately. Thomas Sowell, a well-known voice in an American conservative movement, as a prominent black conservative, recently passed away March 28th. I'm afraid he took a lot of common sense away with him. Some of his quotes are, civil rights used to be about treating everyone the same.
1 minute.
But today, some people are so used to being treated special that the treatment has become considered to be discrimination. Another quote, some of his biggest cases of mistaken identity are those intellectuals having a hard time remembering they're not God. And what exactly is your fair share of what someone else has worked for? You see, when you come to America, you come through the port of entry. You become an American. We are all Americans here. The true history of this country is based on American history. Our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. There is no other history according to our founding fathers, only ours. I'm not asking you to ban the book. I just want the book to be placed in the proper location. So may I ask, is this book in the section of our library in fiction or nonfiction? It should be in non.
Thank you for your comments. Chastity Santiago, Civility, Candidate, and Community.
Okay. Hi there. Could a greater miracle take place than for us to look through each other's eyes for an instant? These were the words written by Henry David Thoreau, who was not only an American essayist, poet, but also a vigorous advocate of civil liberties and a dedicated abolitionist, and also one of my favorite writers. Your worldview affects the way you understand things. That's exactly the reason why two people can watch the same movie or read the same book and have different interpretations of it. That's why we need to keep in mind that your opinion is your opinion and your interpretation of a problem or any situation is your interpretation, and you should never confuse them with truth or facts. So if everyone interprets the world differently, then how can we understand each other? The answer is we must always be open-minded. After the last board meeting, two people who spoke on opposite sides of the November censure meeting sat down and had a conversation. Mr. McCree approached me, not to criticize or judge, but seeking to understand. I talked and he listened. He listened and he talked and I listened. We did this without the exchange of any harsh words or elevated voices. And we both walked away feeling better for having this conversation. We all heard Mr. McCree's words at the censor meeting, the same meeting where I vocalized my support for Mr. Martin. We both spoke passionately about our views. Knowing our desire for others to understand us must come with the willingness to do the same for others. My conversation that I had with candidate Bernard McCree and a post by candidate Amy Murray encouraging the community to not engage in any type of hate or negative speech is why I'm here tonight. Civil discourse cannot occur when we have candidates mic-dropping statements on social media, when a community member enacts their legal right to petition a candidate. Candidates who are not addressing harshly negative speech on pages where they're active contributors. Candidate social media comments implying other candidates lack understanding of school laws and make contradictory statements but don't give an example. Existing members who are not correcting false narratives that turn a content advisory request into a book ban. Social media comments demanding candidates provide where their children are enrolled when it's no one's business, and on what decision these families make out of the best interest for their children. And criticizing candidates for receiving donations that they're not using for the school. Well, that would be illegal. We as a community cannot arbitrarily dismiss or attack another's perspective. It robs us of the ability to understand and to be understood in a world of personal and of virtual conflicts. No one can hear the messenger when they are not willing to do the same for the others. That's all I ask tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Brian Shavinsky, book banning.
Good evening. This is Brian. I did get my hair cut, so it's not long anymore. That's a great lead-in, just the last speaker. There is a PAC that had write-ins in the past, and now they're promoting 5 other candidates. And this PAC has a history of trying to restrict freedom to books. They've tried to erase that history from their website, but it happened. This PAC has been talking about book ratings or censoring them. I'd like to present a counter-argument. It's crucial to recognize that books can offer a valuable education experience to young readers, and imposing strict limitations on book access might not be the best solution. Comparing books to book contents to movies, video games, and other media is not a fair comparison. Books often challenge readers to think critically and engage with complex ideas, helping them to develop important skills like empathy and understanding. While it is true some books may contain mature or sensitive content, the nature of the written word allows for a more nuanced approach to these topics, as opposed to the visual impact of movies or video games. The suggestion that a book system, rating system for books would be beneficial is simply an oversimplification. Each child's maturity and ability to understand complex ideas vary, And a one-size-fit-all rating system might not adequately address this diversity. This would lead to some children being needlessly restricted from books that could have helped them in their growth and their development. This would needlessly limit a child's ability to reach their full potential. As for their points where they talk about sensible books, they talk about Mein Kampf, Kama Sutra, and 50 Shades of Grey, and similar works. I think it's generally recognized that these books are not equivalent to the books that are in subject to debate in schools. Comparing them to works such as Dr. Seuss, Mark Twain, or Roald Dahl is hyperbolic and detracts from the real issues at hand. The stated centuries of established morals and ethics. While consistency in our values and decisions is important, it should not come at the expense of progress and change. As society evolves, so should too our understanding of what is appropriate for children to learn and read. It's crucial to open to reevaluating our beliefs and practices to ensure that they are in line with current values and knowledge. Reevaluating them has given women and minorities
1 minute.
the power to vote and many other equitable positive changes in our society. While the idea of book ratings in schools might seem like a reasonable precaution, it could potentially be more harmful than helpful. Instead of focusing on restricting access, it might be more productive to encourage open discussions and critical thinking about the contents of these books, allowing children to develop skills they need to navigate complex ideas and situations. Education is freedom. What can the community do? Vote this primary, May 16th. Vote for candidates that believe in public education and aren't against it. Vote for Jennifer Denny, Guadalupe Casper, Bernard McCree, Bob Schneider, and Brad Hart. Vote this May 16th. Don't let them delete books like they try to delete and edit their own history of comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on non-agenda items. I will open up the discussion to any board members. Dr. Kennedy?
I have two fun things. The first fun thing is I want to say thank you to our aquatics department. She had to wait 3 weeks, but Blakely had a birthday party at the pool yesterday, and it was fantastic. 20 squealing girls, and they were exhausted, and their parents were grateful, and the people at the aquatic center were wonderful. God bless Mr. Metzger, who had to listen to my 9,000 neurotic phone calls and questions. He was wonderful to work with. The lifeguards are wonderful. The pool manager was wonderful. What a great opportunity for our community to use our pool. So I want to say thank you for that. We had a great time. The second thing I have today, we kind of had a lead-in for that, is I had, Kutztown University had their Children's Literature Conference on Saturday. And I was able to live out one of my bucket lists, and I got to meet Alan Gratz. And he is a wildly talented author of young adult fiction. He is able to reach middle schoolers who are elusive in their reading in a way that many other authors are not able to. And I was so excited for him to come. I picked up, I don't have that one with me, I picked up the book Refugee just a few years ago. I'm late, by the way, on the Alan Gratz train. So I read his novel Refugee, and it changed my life. It was one of those books that I was so flustered while I was reading the book because I couldn't figure out how it fit together. There were 3 separate stories. It tells the story of 3 refugee families, one from 1930s Germany, one from 1980s Cuba, and recent-day Syria. And I couldn't figure out how it was all going to, and I want my books to tie together like a double knot. And I was like, this is going to be awful. It's going to be one of those make-your-own endings. But it wasn't. The ending was phenomenal. And I knew the minute I read that book that this was a perspective that teachers and future teachers needed to have. Because one day they could have students who were refugees in their classroom. And every year since, my future teachers have read this book in class. Reading is important because it builds empathy and it expands perspective. So I was so thrilled when Alan Gratz was first announced as a presenter. We get to introduce the presenters. So at our summer meeting, I was like, oh, I want to introduce Alan Gratz, and I will fight whoever needs to to do it. So I introduced him, and it was really a thrill. But typically, we also get to spend a lot of time talking and getting to know the authors. I had a plan to get to his lunch table because we usually eat lunch with them. And unfortunately, this year I couldn't sit at his table because he couldn't eat lunch with us. He was too busy doing meet and greets at the Firefly Bookstore with local middle schoolers. You may have heard that Kutztown Middle School had their One Book, One Child canceled, despite teachers writing a grant and having already ordered the books. To quote Alan Gratz in a Philadelphia Inquirer article from today, I think what's happening around the country is that a few loud people are making a stink and getting school boards and superintendents to back down because they just don't want the trouble. I'm so grateful to serve on this school board with these school board members and this administration who stand up for the children's right to read. I trust that they know that access to books is of the utmost importance, and we should not be restricting access to books for our children in any way. So I want to just share a little bit. I have 3 books for the West Middle School and for Southern Middle School. The first one is the book that was banned or taken away. It's still in the library, but it was taken out of the hands of over 200 students. It's 2 Degrees. And it's signed for Southern and signed for West. It's a story about, again, it has like 3 different stories that intertwine, all set with the background of crazy weather and things caused by climate change. And it is one of those books where you're like, oh my goodness, it's like a nonstop roller coaster ride of adventure. So if your child likes adventure and realistic fiction, this is a great book for them. Also comes together in the end in a very surprising way. The second book I have is Prisoner B. All of our 6th graders already read this book. The copy that I have for Wilson Southern, I had Alan write that it's in memory of Miss Sarnes. The first person I wanted to call to tell Alan Gratz was coming was Jen, because he was one of the authors we could go off on an hour-and-a-half tangent, and next thing I know, I folded laundry and cleaned my entire house while we're still on the phone with her. I'm so sad that she didn't get an opportunity to come see him. I'm sure it would have been a bucket list item for her. She never missed a children's literature conference. And she has been a victim of wrongful accusations in this community and people trying to take her books out of her book clubs. My new favorite Alan Gratz book is this one. It's called Ban This Book. And this is actually written for a little bit of younger readers, but I donated it to the middle school because my favorite part of this book was it name drops all the other amazing books. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Matilda, Harriet the Spy, From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Baisley Frankenweiler, Junie B. Jones, Captain Underpants, The Egypt Game, which I used to teach in 6th grade. So I couldn't even get mad at this book because every other page it talks about a book that I fell in love with as a child. And the main theme of this book isn't book banning. The theme of this book is finding your voice. And I love that the character's name is Amy Ann, and she's just absolutely adorable. And if you do take the time to read this book, you will find out that Alan Gratz is one of the kindest, nicest people in the world, because the character in this book did not deserve the ending that he gave her. And it's just, I highly, highly recommend it, not just to our young readers, but to any of you that grew up like I did, under the cover with the nightlight on, trying to read as long as you possibly could. It will bring back really great memories for our grown-ups as well. And I do want to just lastly say, Brian talked and he said about how each child is very, very different and where they are developmentally and what they're able to read. So my Tanner read this, he's in 7th grade. And one day he came from school And of course, Blakely dumped her entire book bag out. And laying on there was Scary Stories in the Dark. She brought it home from elementary school. She's in 3rd grade. And Tanner looks at it and he says, "Mommy, that's a banned book." And I went, "Oh my goodness." And I just thought it was so funny because my Blakely, like, she's not scared of anything. And she loved that book. But the little girl in this one was so terrified. Like, it was one of those really funny things. She, like, put it in her closet because she was like, "I don't want to see that book anymore." So and it talked about how it really, she said, maybe I shouldn't have read that one because it was a little too scary for me. And I think we don't, I don't think we trust our kids enough to know what's appropriate for them. Our kids know. And these are 3 great books, so I'm happy to put them on the agenda for next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Any other discussion from the board? Mrs. Casper?
Thank you, President Cocker. I just wanted to echo some of the public comments around May 16th, which is our primary special election. It's a local election. I just wanted to remind folks that this is a local election, and a lot of the decisions that we make affect everything that we engage with in our community. So local elections is like where stuff actually happens. So I would encourage people to definitely vote in this election. A lot of people are unaware that in Pennsylvania, in primary elections, you can only vote if you're registered as a Republican or a Democrat. If you want to vote in this election and you are not registered on either of those, you still have time. May 1st is the deadline to register for this election. So if anyone is interested in voting, it's definitely, they definitely still have some time. And even some of our young people, I know, are really engaging in our electoral process and finding more information out about it. If you are 17 and you will be 18 by May 16th, you also can definitely register for voting in the primary this May 16th. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. Other things to share from the board? All right, I have a couple. It has been a busy couple of days, actually. So Friday, Shiloh Hills, it was great. So Friday, the 3rd graders from our entire district took a field trip, half in the morning, half in the afternoon, to Shiloh Hills for something called Learning in the Wild. And I was invited by Mrs. Peterson, who organized it, along with the entire 3rd grade team of teachers, but I think she was kind of the spearhead. And they had stations set up for the kids. It was all nature focused. So in case you're unaware, because some of the teachers that were on the field trip also had not realized that Shiloh Hills had this amazing opportunity. Spring Township, so the Shiloh Hills school property stops at a certain point, and then there are woods and a path and a pavilion in the woods. That's Spring Township property, one of their community parks. And so the students had stations set up. They invited Berks Nature to explain, do like a presentation with skulls and owl pellets, so kind of gross stuff in my opinion, but really like nature focused in all Pennsylvania animals. And it was really neat. And then they had Berks Astronomical Society. They gave, talked about the sun and like what sunspots are and the cycles, and gave the kids these special equipment, because you're not supposed to look, very clearly explained, not supposed to look at the sun on a normal basis. But they had these special little visors they could look up at the sun and try and check out if they saw any sunspots. And then they had Berks Master Gardeners, which was really great. They brought like all sorts of puppets, and it was all puppets of pollinators. So one thing that I think one of the 3rd graders took away from the conversation I heard was that a butterfly, you don't often think of butterfly, obviously everybody thinks of bees, but butterflies are pollinators too, and really important. So they were really, really engaged. And then a honey beekeeper, Mr. Willingmeyer, he had like a whole box set up, and he explained the whole process. And in between groups of students, I snuck over and like talked to him about it, and he let me like taste the fresh honey, and it was delicious. I never had that so fresh in my life, like right from the beehive, so or the honeycomb. So it was a really great opportunity for the kids, and I just wanted to thank Mrs. Peterson and the whole 3rd grade team and Spring Township for just having that facility, but encourage people to go check it out and take a walk in the woods. And then Saturday, the Grandview Gallery. As you can see, the interactive exhibit was open. They had their grand opening with former Wilson student Brent Brown, who is the artist, and his art is all around the room. And then there were puppets set out. I think those are examples towards the back, but it was interactive, so the kids could actually like physically maneuver the puppets, which made me a little nervous. I thought they were going to break. Almost everything's made out of cardboard, and a lot of the cardboard animals that are on display, it's very little glue or other adhesives to keep them together. It's just that, like, he cut the cardboard in a way and stuck the other pieces in that it's just held together on its own, which is amazing. So just be careful when you're over there, but it is interactive. You can walk through and check it all out. There are a lot of little surprises throughout. So I thought that was an amazing activity to bring the family to, and Mr. Chappell was here. He came up from Florida, and this is his, he's the Bob Chappell exhibit, Grand Gallery, so that was nice to have him here. And then today, I don't know if anybody noticed, I may have confused a couple words on here. I'm a little tired because today I was invited, it is Community Service Week, so I was invited by a high school teacher to come in and talk about community service from our board perspective, but also, I'm involved in a couple of other community service activities throughout the week, so I shared those activities with them and gave them, we brainstormed some other activities they could do. A lot of the students already volunteer their time in a variety of ways, so they shared their different activities, and it was a really good conversation, but an entire day of teaching, I spoke to them, but it was the whole class period. I'm exhausted. I didn't remember how tired it makes you, and I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our teachers because I am ready to go to sleep right now. So thank you to everyone, and thank you to Mrs. Heckman, who invited me in to talk to her Understanding Relationships class to just kind of talk about what local, community service looks like and why it's important to give back to your community to make it a better place to live in. So I wanted to thank her as well. So any other material from the board? Okay, then hearing none, I would like to hear a motion to adjourn.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Meeting adjourned.